Okay, so we're going to continue this lesson on polynomials. Notice on this one we're talking about combining like terms, and it says review because that should be something that you've seen before. When we're talking about like terms, that means that they have to match as far as the variables and the exponents. So notice on these first two we have negative 5x squared and negative 1x squared. They're like terms because they are both x squared. And then on the second set here we have 7xy to the third z, negative 2xy, xz, y to the third. Now the order changed, but they still are the same because it's x to the first, z to the first, and y to the third. So the order doesn't matter, but normally we do write them alphabetically, so we would do the x, y, z, and that would be like more proper, but either one's actually okay. On the unlike terms, we have an x squared and an x to the first, so that's why they're not the same, right? They're not matching terms. On the next one, we have x squared y cubed, and we have x to the first y cubed. So that means that those are unlike terms. We could not combine those. Now, we use like terms in order to simplify expressions. So notice this one says simplify by combining like terms. Now, you may want to organize this in some way that helps you identify your like terms, but this first one actually is written in such a way that our like terms are side by side, right? So these are like terms, and then these two are like terms. When we're combining like terms, we simply add the coefficients or combine the coefficients, because you're looking at this like, oh, well, there's some negative ones, but we are still adding the negatives. And so here we have a negative 1 plus 3, so it will be 2x. Right, just negative 1 plus 3 is 2, and that gives us a 2x. On the next one, we have negative 4 and negative 9, so that will be negative 13x squared. Okay, let's move on to this next one. So the next one's not organized quite the way this one was, but once again, you can do some things that help you with this. So maybe we put boxes around the xy squared terms, and notice I'm going to put the signs with them so we don't miss our signs. And then I'm going to circle with a different color the x terms because they're just x to the first, and then the constant term is by itself and it doesn't have another constant term, so we don't combine it with anything, we just leave it the same. All right, so let's write this answer. Negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6, so negative 6xy squared. And then on the x terms I have a 4 and a negative 1, so that's going to be 3x. And then of course we have our constant term that stays the same, and that's negative 11/15. Okay, and so we have that written. Oh, by the way, on this other one, I put it in this order. Most of the time we're going to probably write it negative 13x squared plus 2x, and quite honestly, either way is the same. Now, if it said write it in descending order, then we would want the x squared first and then the 2x after that. Okay, I don't know why I just wrote it in the order that it was. And I'm really okay with that unless I tell you otherwise, if I say write these in order somehow. So this was blurry. I had to do my little workaround thing that happens from time to time. I'm not real sure about that. So on these, we're going to combine them. We're going to combine some polynomials by addition. And really, it just means that we're going to add like terms for the two different polynomials, and then we'll combine them into one. So let's take a look at this first one. Notice that they're in order. So, hey, I had a knock on my door and I paused. I don't know what I was saying before that pause, so we'll just continue on here. When you're adding these, you can take them out of the parentheses and rearrange them, or you can leave them in the parentheses. You really just have to make sure that you combine your x squared, your x's, and your constant terms. Now, this may look like, oh, this is so easy, but students make mistakes, you guys, so it might be good to go ahead and take them out. So if I write this x squared plus 8x squared plus 4x plus 9x minus 7 and minus another, right? That you could say plus -7, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say -7 for both of those because they're both negative. And then I can combine, right? So that's a 1. I'm going to have a 9x squared. And then let me do this. Those two go together. These two go together. And then this last one, right? The 7s. Okay, so let's continue on. Then we have a 13x, -7, and -7 are -14. And then we have combined all the terms. Okay, so then the other thing you could do is just leave them in the parentheses and make sure that you're matching them up that way. Okay, but I think I'm going to take them all out. Okay, so sometimes when I've taught this in class, I have students who think this and this are the same, and they're not, right? Because one has a z and one does not have a z, so we have to keep those separate. So we've got the 9xyz, and then it doesn't match anything, right? And then we have a -9xy, and that also doesn't match anything. And then we have 4x and -3x, so there we have some like terms. We have a -1y and a +1y, and then we also have a constant term of 2. And so you see that we do have these two and these two that we can combine for like terms. All right, so here we go. We've got 9xyz, which we keep, -9xy, 4x minus 3x will be a 1x, -1 plus 1 is 0. 0y is just 0. You guys leave it out, right? It doesn't go in this answer because we eliminated that by adding a -1 to a +1. And then we're finished. That's it. Now, the only difference here is just that this has some decimal numbers, and decimal numbers are just numbers. And so we're going to treat this the same way. So let's do this. We're going to have these two that go together, right? So we're going to add a 9.3 and a 2.6. You can always just use your calculator with this, which gives us 11.9 y squared. And then we have a -1y and a 4.4y. Oh, I didn't make that a squiggly one, right? So -1 plus 4.4 is going to be 3.4. So 3.4y. And then last here we have 12.8 and -8.9. And that gives us a 3.9. And so we have combined everything possible, and we're finished with that. Okay. Now, subtraction always adds another layer here of places where you can mess up. That's kind of how that works. So anytime you have the subtraction, you have to remember that everything that follows your subtraction sign is going to change sign. So notice what this says, a minus b equals a plus -b. You're going to rewrite with the opposite sign basically for everything that follows the subtraction. I would definitely say you've got to do something here to make sure that this stands out to you and you're not missing your signs. Okay, so we're going to take these out. To subtract a number, we add its opposite. Okay, so if we're adding the opposite of everything following the subtraction, then each of those is going to change sign. So we're going to take this out, 2x squared plus 3x plus 12. This one stays the same because in front of the parenthesis there's a +1 if you wanted to think about it that way. You can treat this like a -1. Right, so I'm multiplying through by -1, or just think about, oh, every sign will be the opposite. Okay, so I'm going to have a -20x squared, a +5x, and a +7. So originally I had a positive, negative, negative. When I apply my negative to everything, then I have a negative, positive, positive. And that's how that's going to be each time that you do this. Okay, so these two go together, right? And I'm going to have negative 18 x squared. And then I have a positive 3x and a positive 5x. So that's going to be 8x. 3 plus 5, just right, 3 plus 5, that's 8. And then last I have a 12 and a 7, and that gives me a 19. And then we're finished with that problem. Okay, I think we'll do one more, and then I'll stop this video to start up a third one. Okay, here's one of the techniques that I use. I'm going to add the opposite. Now, using a different color is good, because if you use the same color as what you had this written in the beginning, you can't tell that you changed your signs, right? So originally, remember, I had a positive, negative, negative. When I add the opposite, I'm going to have a negative and a positive here. And so then, instead of taking it all out of the parentheses, this is probably the way that you would like, because it's less writing for sure. And so here we have, right, a 3x squared and a negative 8x squared, so negative 5x squared. And then we have a 6xy and another, right, we have two of them, so plus 12xy. And then we have a 3y squared and a 1y squared, so that's going to be plus 4y squared. And that's it. We're finished with that question. We've combined everything that we can. Okay, so I'll stop this and finish the lesson on the last video.